Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I want to talk to you guys about something that has been on my mind for a while now, which is the truth about Kawaki's mother and why we need to have a very serious discussion about it being potentially Amado's daughter. This has been something that has been a nagging feeling in my gut for a few years now, going all the way back to when I noticed the official translation of Boruto Naruto Next Generations chapter 34 changed the wording of something that I knew for certain was said in Japanese because I've seen native Japanese translators who were born in Japan who clarified it for me, tell me as much, which is that when Amado said G's smart mouth, the Japanese version said that that daughter of mine has a smart mouth, which reminder Japanese to English or Japanese to any Romance language, so French, Italian, etc. It isn't a word-for-word translation due to the nuances and how complex and how subtle the language is, since it relies so heavily on context, and context in Japanese culture is always constantly changing. The questions only got louder in my head as we went towards the end of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, in particular the last 5 chapters of the manga. And so in today's newest Naruto Explain video, I want to lay out why I believe we need to have a very real conversation about Kawaki's mother being Amado's daughter, and why this makes even more sense than you believe, or if you're like me, even more sense than you want to believe. Because while I can see this being the case, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but again, it's a pit in my stomach that I can't shake. Normally for something like this, I would usually wait until we have more solid breadcrumbs before staking a claim in something like this, versus doing like the random water cooler discussion that you typically see me do after a chapter drops, like why the new Shinju isn't barrel mode Naruto, or why Boruto being captured is a big problem for Shikamaru, where those aren't theory videos so much as conversations that look at the narrative and we hold a discussion on it from a different perspective. The way you might be in literature class or something, looking at a classic story of Wuthering Heights, and you just talk about different things from the story from a different perspective. Usually with something like this, I'd wait for more info, but Amado's daughter being Kawaki's mom, it's something that it's gonna drive me crazy until I can kind of pick you guys' brains to see, am I crazy or am I going down the right track on this? To be clear, I do think it's a little early, but I don't think it's the wrong topic to pursue this for this one reason. Everything Amado has done, it has a hidden meaning to it. All of his words that he speaks there usually half-truths, and he keeps information to himself until it is the most appropriate to reveal it, or he has no option to do so. He is very much every bit the person that Ada described him as, someone who makes a problem and then he swoops in with the answer to fix it, to gain credit or make himself invaluable or wiggle his way out of a situation. With Amado, he has always taken unusual interest in Kawaki, even from the very moment where he first meets Kawaki in the manga, as we see him when he's a child, and he is visibly pausing when he lays eyes on him. Amado is usually someone who is several steps ahead, but he was very briefly thrown out at the sight of Kawaki before recomposing himself and asking Jigen, hey, is this the last child? Jigen smiles, then he tells Amado to treat him accordingly, and that's an interesting clarification that has always bothered me. Up until that point, they had experimented on several children, trying to find a proper vessel for Ishiki that Jigen could pass his karma onto, so that Jigen could be fed to the Ten Tails and then Ishiki would revive into a new vessel. Yet Jigen still felt the need to remind Amado, someone who should be loyal to him, to treat his kid with those dusty clothes and those cracked lips that are so sharp it can cut chapstick in half. He still felt the need to say treat him accordingly. You only drop that reminder if you believe that Amado isn't going to carry out business as usual, as in he would show favoritism by treating Kawaki differently than he did all the other kids. By this point in the timeline, Jigen had already seen what Amado's thumbscrew was, which was his family. He used his daughter as a means to get Amado to help him. So would we really think that he would be above seeking out his grandson to do the same thing, especially if he thought that progress was not moving along at the rate that he wanted? I don't think so, and it would explain 3 very important things. Number 1, it would explain why Kawaki, the son of someone who we were told is a great shinobi before his mind was broken in the 4th Ninja War, why Kawaki was stashed away deep inside the boonies in a hard to reach area. Number 2, it would also explain why Kawaki's father was the only parent around with no mother nearby, and give another reason for the drinking of the father. If, say, the mother passed away, that would explain it. It's important to remember we do know the age of Amado's daughter when she died. She was just as young as Kushina was when she gave birth to Naruto, which was 24 years old, which makes the math line up in the timeline if we go with the timeline provided via the Konoha chronology. It was released back in Japan in 2017. Number 3, it would also explain why Jigen personally went to collect Kawaki when he could have just as easily sent someone else to do it. He personally went. The fact that a leader of an organization personally went out of his way to collect Kawaki, it was always another red flag for me, especially when the anime episode dropped and it showed us that Delta, a clone replica of Amado's daughter, happened to be in the same village looking for a suitable vessel, and she had her head and her face covered for the majority of the time that she was there, which this is anime. So even for as illogical as it is that just putting the hood up over your face makes it 100% impossible for someone to notice you, even when you're looking them directly in the face and you're not lowering your head. That never left the thorn out of my side. It just stayed lodged in there. The same with how Delta was written as speaking to Kawaki when she came to Konoha. We've seen Boro refer to Kawaki as having gone soft and needing to retrain Kawaki, yet Delta, when she shows up, the wording that she's used, it always stood out to me. She is the only one being written in the manga as having punished Kawaki, using the word specifically punishment. The sort of thing that a child receives from a mother, the sort of thing a child receives from a parent. When you factor in Kawaki's father had dark hair, but Kawaki has a mix of blonde and black hair, that's another thing that makes me start wondering about this. Ikimoto said way back in 2016 that Kawaki's design was intentional, both because he wanted to blend aspects of Naruto and Sasuke together, but for other reasons he couldn't go into. And after reading what he said over in France this last weekend, towards the end of August 2024, about how intentional everything is with the designs, it made me go right back to this whole thing. That is Kawaki's mother. When you couple that with Amado being startled at the sight of him in the flashback and Jigen's wanting to not treat him special, and Amado's fascination with Kawaki, I think we have to ask, is this something else that he is keeping from Kawaki? Think about it. Amado wasn't above cloning his daughter, obsessing with spending time trying to find another version of her, make another version of her, instead of spending her last moments with her as she was dying. Is it crazy to say that Kawaki ends up being the grandchild that, say, he didn't know he had until he laid eyes on his grandchild? Or he's the grandchild he stashed away once he learned what Jigen was trying to do and the fact that he was experimenting on kids? Would any of us put it past Amato to drop that information on Kawaki as we get closer to the moment of him having to place the coma seal on another clone of Akebi that Amato's preparing? I don't think it is, nor do I think it's a mistake that a clone cyborg of her just happens to be alongside Kawaki as often as she does during the events of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. It is a subtle nod to make you start associating the two together, just as Naruto's manga would drop several small nods that didn't directly tell us that Minato was Naruto's dad, but they did show up as blink and you miss it moments that made you start wondering, up until the moment that Jiraiya and Tsunade spoke about Naruto's parents before Jiraiya went to the Rain Village and got beat up by the Six Paths of Pain. Kawaki being told that information would be Amado giving Kawaki more skin in the game when it comes to the revival of his daughter, especially given Kawaki already told him, yeah, if I do this and she turns into Otsutsuki, I'm killing her. Could he still do that if he knows that the person he is about to kill is his mother, even if she is a clone with her memories and personality? The exact opposite of Delta, who has the memories but none of the personality, as Ada said in those exact words. The exact opposite of Delta would be Akebi. That would be one hell of a Hail Mary to toss, a last minute, last ditch effort, and it feels in character for Amado to sit on this information as long as he has, and why, even beyond the Akebi reveal, his connection with Kawaki was as strong as it was in terms of his desperation when it comes to him. In a way, it's a way to continue humanizing a character who has done so much morally wrong throughout the series. It would also explain why Kawaki was the one who was given the genetic data of Amado's daughter, because as we've seen, when it comes to transference with the coma seal to pass on genetic data from one to another, there has to be compatibility there. What's more compatible than a parent and child? There's another few small interactions between the two that lend itself to this being something of interest in my opinion, but the fallout from this reveal is another reason why I want this to be true, but I'm also apprehensive of it being true because this could turn into a huge cluster if it's handled wrong. Kawaki is someone who has never known family, just as Naruto had been without knowing his family. There's a tragic connection there. Boruto was stated to be more like Sasuke by Kishimoto and Ikimoto, the same way that Kawaki was stated to be similar to Naruto. That would continue the overlap of someone like Kawaki learning about his parent when he is a teenager. It would also be intriguing because of the constant issue that Kawaki has with trust, with this being a big thing for him in terms of grounds for trust issues as you could ever have expected. It would also continue to build on the theme of family, but also most importantly, continue showing that monsters are both monsters for the sake of being monsters, but also that people can transform into the greatest monsters of all due to the actions they've made, even if they have good intent for why they do what they do. That whole dynamic between Kawaki and Amado changes if we go down this path. It makes for adding more layers to the story, to the characters in a way that makes them more human and makes the stakes higher for the Boruto versus Kawaki battle, because we still don't know why Boruto said, "I didn't think you would go this far, Kawaki." I'd be very curious to see where you guys fall on this topic, which this topic in itself is an intriguing one, almost as intriguing as this anime explain video that you can click here on the left to support my other channel, or clicking here on the right for more Naruto explain content, because as Hashirama says, Senju DNA is love, Senju DNA is life.